Cool. It's good to be here. I'm a bit of a mover around. I don't like standing behind something, so hopefully I'm not giving you a headache on the camera. But it's so good to be here. I want to put right out here that I started a business 10 years ago in this area of fashion stuff. I have no background in that. I wish I went to school in that. And sustainability was just a buzzword that nobody really knew. They don't really know much now, to be honest, but didn't know much then around the sustainability. And so I've kind of had to go on this journey of learning and doing something. But my story started 10 years ago where my wife and I was a youth worker, say not even in sales, not even in business, nothing like that. But my story started with 10 years ago, my wife and I were looking at doing a little bit more foster care. We're adoptive parents. We attended a course and heard somebody say this story. When we was a child or a young person in care, she said, when we move, the trusts or the local authorities don't give us suitcases. Sometimes foster carers loan us a suitcase, but more often our stuff's moved in black plastic bin bags and lose their dignity. And I just had this moment of, I'm going to fix that. And I never thought I would start a brand. I thought I would just go back to the young people of my youth centre, collect their old bags. You know, that would probably be more circular, to be honest, than getting people from their, the kids that get new bags every year, school bags. I thought I could collect their bags, their suitcases, and give them to children, young people in the care system so the bin bags wouldn't be used. Well, a couple of things was that I started to research then the problem, which is what you do when you have a business. You look at what the problem is. The problem was that I could have fixed that problem in Northern Ireland here. It was about 3,000 children, young people in care, could have collected bags. But I started to look into a UK-wide thing, and there was over 90,000 kids. One child moving every 15 minutes, and most of it belongs in bin bags. So that led me to thinking, well, okay, that's not going to be able to be a solution to that from my young people. And should I set up a charity and do this kind of like collecting bags? And then you need big warehouses, you need logistics, you need all that stuff. And that wasn't going to work either. And then my whole thing was, and I think this is the thing from the sustainability piece, if I was being honest, is we separated environmental out from people. But actually everything and every conversation around sustainability is about people. Because by saving and being better in our planet and our environment, the end result is it's better in people. You know, I was talking to somebody last week who was telling me that they have a research, they're looking at testing in a laboratory type thing, and they were testing soils. And even if you eat a carrot today, a carrot is less good for you than it was 20 years ago because the nutrients in that soil. So that's an environmental issue. So everything that we do is an end result on us as people. So, and that's where I come in, because I believe that every person has huge value, huge worth, and deserves to be treated with dignity. So it makes total sense to be doing something around the sustainability piece, being better for our environment, better how we care for people. And so when I heard the bin bag story, it was that thing for me, is these children and young people have huge value, huge worth, and they deserve to be treated with dignity. And treating them with dignity is about giving them their own new bag, not a second hand, even though that might have been good. But why not tell them that they can have a new bag? Now, that was before this whole, would I do that now? I might think more sustainability around it. I might think more circular around it. But then 10 years ago, no experience of this, was just like, go fix it. And so that was becoming a bit of a, like, how do I do this numbers and how do I get them new bags? Well, set a charity up. To be a charity, you've got to fundraise all the time. I'm really rubbish at the admin stuff. I'm dyslexic, so I'm filling funding applications and so forth. That's why I've got an EA who works for me. She does all my emails, and so the team that got me here have been engaging with that. But that's because I knew that wouldn't work as a charity. And if you're not good at that whole fundraising kind of stuff, then the other part that you have to do is you've got to climb a few mountains, run a few marathons, do a few fundraisers. And I've just had a huge scone, a coffee, and I love my food. So not very good at that. I've got a figure that can just be brilliant for that. So that led me to then going, okay, is there another way to solve this bin bag problem? Is there another way to give children, young people in care who are incredible with this value or dignity a brand new bag? And I don't know if anybody come across the brand Tom's Shoes. So I was at a conference and I heard the guy who founded Tom's Shoes 5 years after he had founded it. And he was telling a story of how he came across kids in South America that didn't have shoes, and he thought, well, I could put £5,000 and buy shoes for the children, but the problem is, where do I get the next £5,000 for the next batch of shoes? So he started a shoe company called Tom's with this idea that he got the shoes of the locality. They were kind of, I've never owned them because they were never my style, but they're little canvas things, and he thought, if I get people these local shoes made, take them back to my friends and family in America, sell them with this commitment of buy one and give one, we could solve this and it'd be a sustainable model of funding to make that difference. And so it's set up, and the shoe brand is still there today. You can see it in some of our shoe shops and so forth, and lots of variety of shoes. Now they don't give a shoe because they've realized they've given everybody that needed a pair of shoes, and now it's 100% profit or percentage of profit goes. But that's where it came. I was so inspired when I heard this guy. And he said that I went away feeling like, this is brilliant, using business to fix a social problem. And I thought, could I do that in bags? Could I create a bag brand with this commitment of sell a bag and give a bag to a child or young person in care? So the biggest gift you can have when you've never done business or never worked in a corporate world is you think you can do it even though you don't know if you can. So I set up this brand called Madlug. It's called Make a Difference Luggage. Nothing smart with it. I Googled, my best friend is Google, I Googled how to start a brand, and Google says you create either a new word that's roughly 5 letters, like Kodak or something like that, and get a .com address. Or you say what you do in the tin. So in your domain is, like there was a company that said, we make websites.com. So you know what they do. So I searched and looked to see, I had no money. £500 is all I had to my name to start this business. We've still never had an investor, and we've helped 120,000 kids. But anyway, set this brand up called Madlug, and we got Madlug as the word, and there was nobody around the space in the .com, and there was, in fact, only one little group that was in this space. When you put Madlug in, it was a hipster group in America doing coding or UX, sort of stuff. So I knew that with a bit of Facebook Live, and that was the platform before, kind of TikTok. I did that. I knew I could push him on the 3rd, 4th, 5th page on the search engines. In fact, we now own madlug.org, which is what they own because they give it up. And we started this Madlug with this idea of selling bags. Now, somebody who has no fashion background, maybe it was a gift actually to not have this at this particular time, was I knew nothing apart from what I saw. So I spent my time walking around places like TK Maxx, every, Debenhams and all the stuff that was there where they sold bags. And I came across one little thing, that every brand was using this classic design with a pocket on the front and the same style. You had Eastpak, you have Herschel, you have all the bags brands out there, Nike, Adidas, everything. And I thought, well, I don't need to have a lot of knowledge here because somebody else is doing it. I just need to be an innovator in telling the story and build a brand that is identifiable. And so the £500 we took was the £480 was 40% deposit for the logo to be designed. And that's what we did. And the reason I got somebody to do that was as a creative, I loved sitting on my Mac and doing stuff. And I created this logo, and everyone was telling me, brilliant, I love it, it's great. And I met a guy who had just finished a graphic design course, and he was going off to work with Jack Wills. And he said, Dave, I'd never wear that in a bag. And I just went, oh. And it was just one moment, I think, and if anybody's in this kind of fashion space or in this creative space, is that the whole business part of it is learning to be able to give away. And I was at that place where I thought, if I cannot give away this logo, I'm not going to be able to give away when I have a first staff hired or when I have somebody else doing it. So I had to learn something from doing everything myself to basically getting other people around to do stuff. So the £480 was the logo, and I was on a little mentoring program with Invest NI, and my mentor says, whenever I got the bags designed and showed, he says, it looks like your graphic design company, you've been working quite a bit with them, and I've got about 3 sessions of mentoring I haven't used, and it needs to be closed by the end of this week. If you get the graphic design company who did your logo to invoices, we'll pay the rest of the bill. And I learned something very, very strategic. So if you're creating something and you've got an idea, money always follows vision. And that's the key I've learned in every step is if you wait till you have it, you'll never do it. And particularly as creatives in this space is we tend to use a term someday. You know, someday I'll have opportunity. Someday I'll have that degree. Someday I'll have, kids growing up and I'll have time. Someday robs all those creative dreams to the grave. If it's so important, just do it. And the kids in the care pit was so important for me, I was just going to do it. And money follows that creativity. So classic design, low risk. I couldn't afford it. At the time when I launched this, everything was pattern. And I couldn't risk because patterns are so subjective. So I couldn't risk this bringing a pattern to market that maybe one person liked that pattern or to bring enough variety. So we went for standard colors. The advantage in that, a year after we launched, everybody was moving in. So it looked like we were ahead of the trend, but it was just because I couldn't afford to do the patterns. And we made the logo quite bold. Then we went to classic duffel bag as well, and that's what we did. So you're probably asking the question, what is the bag that you give? Is it the same bag? And the answer is no, it's not the same bag. Because when you have a social problem, you want to fix the problem. You're not there about just selling and having nice stories to consumers. And this is a whole challenge I have as we were first business to be certified as a kind of brand, to be certified as a B Corp in Northern Ireland, and better business for people and planet. And it takes about a year or so to go through that process. It's quite tough. We were one of the first. In fact, we were the first. It was an accountant's company before us, but then it was us. And but the biggest challenge is that it'd be so easy just to use stuff to sell to consumers. So feel good to consumer that's using recycled polyester. That sells better, but it might not be as good as. And you have all this kind of greenwashing in many ways is what it's called, or social washing. And but that's the biggest challenge. So we created a bag that we wanted to fix the social problem, not create a nice story. So the bag that we give is this. And we sat down with care experienced young people and we co-designed this bag on the basis of the little pack. A Mac, there was 2 companies in Northern Ireland that exported, or were selling outside of here. Is the Target Dry, which was a coat company, and they had this sub-brand called Mac in a Sack. And then you have the O'Neill sports brand. There's lots of sports stuff here that's coming. But in Northern Ireland, we weren't really that creative in our brands. We were importers of brands. We love our brands. We also love a good 70% off, so we don't care if it's last year's colours. So, there's an element where how do you create a brand in this wee country? It's like people told me I was mad in doing this. So we create this, and when this bag's opened up, it opens up into a 35-litre travel bag. So suddenly we've got the social problem sorted in that this bag holds 20 of them folded up. So no social worker can turn around and say, we've no bags at hand, because they take too much space. This is solving the problem. And we've given over 120,000 of those, funded through that £500, starting a business, selling the bag and giving it. And we've sold bags in John Lewis, so who remembers the TV ad that went out on the foster kid a couple of years ago? We actually were influential in that actual whole concept happening. And for the last 2 years, we've been a bag brand in John Lewis. Some of our colours, some of our products, not everything, but some of that. And then we've also sold to IKEA, 13,000 bags for a Christmas gift for all their staff in 2020. So we've created this buy one, wear one, help one. And why I'm really passionate about at the start, if I'm being honest, it was about creating a quality product that would just fund the giving of a bag. I was coming out as a youth worker. You know, I just want to help people. But actually what we have grown into now is this brand. I was in London this week, 3 days, and I counted 40 Madlugs being worn around the city of London, which is quite phenomenal in the airport, and people just wearing it, you know, and people I don't know. So it's not just my friends and families traveling with me, you know, but it was just quite remarkable. But it's this buy one, but it's this that people are actually wearing it and using it. And what we hear from the care experience community that receive our bags, and even those who don't receive it, when they know Madlug is all about them, is they feel seen, they feel that people care for them, and because they often feel lost in a care system, that only professionals in their world, you know about them, but general society either only read the wrong stuff about them or they know little about them. And I love my job because I get to talk about children in care at places like this where it's not your normal conversation. So, so this whole idea of wearing one came up, where it's the idea of love without words. So in a fashion, being bold enough to hold our line in this, because in a world where brands are being encouraged to put your branding on and be more subtle, you know, black on black, you know, cream on cream. That's the way branding's happening now. We're less away from the big bold, because, you know, those who can afford the brands don't necessarily like to show off that they can afford the brands, and all that kind of stuff that goes. There's a whole lot of stuff around the fashion world. And in a world like that, it'd be so tempting for us to just go, well, that bag sells to give a bag. Let's follow the trend, and let's put a little small Madlug in the corner. Let's put a label. Let's put black on black, all that stuff. But actually, we have been really bold in saying we're all about our brand, because our brand isn't saying, look how well off I am, but look how much I care. And there's this visualization of showing love without words to a community of young people who feel unseen. Now, I didn't see that right at the start. All I saw was that funding. And then by wearing it and by buying it, you're helping one. So that's the story, and the impact has been amazing. Say 120,000 kids across. The monetary value of that doing business is worth about £1.2 million from 500. And you think if I had set up a charity, I'd have taken £1.2 million away from other charities that are set up to need money. And so I'd have fixed the bin bag problem and created another problem somewhere else. But instead, I'm a friend of all those charities, because I'm not competing, and I'm also an ally for every child or young person in care, because we're selling a bag that's communicating this huge value. So what can I bring to the sustainability piece? And a couple of things that I've learned is sustainability. The challenge on sustainability is when you set up a business, the sustainability means you've also got to have a sustainable business, and I think we touched on that. And the part that's been the biggest challenge is that it's getting your product right at the right pricing. Because the thing is, we made bags at the start in Belfast, and we try to keep our price the same as what they are now. Now, we didn't have John Lewis looking their wholesale margins and all that sort of stuff that we had then, so you could take less margin and all of that. And what I learned from the consumer is this. We've been having great conversations about this stuff. The consumer, what I've learned is that consumers buy what they like and what they can afford, irrelevant to the sustainability piece. The sustainability piece isn't necessarily the purchaser's main decision. It's an added. If they like it and they can afford it, it might be the final straw that gets them over the line of buying it because it's well made and sustainable and it's made with the right fabric. But it generally isn't the starting place. You don't buy something you don't like just because it's sustainable. So I think when we're designing in this area of fashion is that the values of sustainability isn't about the benefit to the consumer. It has to be at the core of what you do. It has to be a core of you. So for me, everything about Madlug is people matter. So the integrity and the decisions and all of that forms how we do business. And so if we're creating brands and fashion, it's because I care about sustainability. And then you put all those practices in. But often, in the world that we live in, it's often the other way, particularly established organizations. It's like, oh, what's the end user want? So they want sustainability. And it generally is not the decision maker in my view. Because we put 2 bags up and people chose the colour they liked, even though one was made in China and one was made in Belfast. And no matter how much survey and research you do, people say, oh, we want to be sustainable, we want to be locally made, we want it to be. My experience was totally not that. However, is it important? Absolutely. So in our certification with B Corp, one of the things that B Corp did for us was we signed up to an accountability process where good for people, so we have to score on certain parts. We were always stronger on the people part, and we were less strong on, we were operating out of a porta cabin that there was no insulation. It was just like heat going out everywhere and all the stuff you couldn't do anything about. Being a B Corp has actually changed that for us, is at every decision. So we went into a new office in Lisburn. First thing we did was looked at the lights and went, oh, these lights are fluorescent tubes in them. Some of them work, some do. We spend 300 quid to replace all the tubes that need to be replaced. Or do we spend £3,000 to get LED lighting in? So there was less energy consumption. B Corp probably, we use that as our justifier now to go, okay, we're a B Corp, we're going to do that. Whenever it comes to ordering new bags to ship our product out, because we're an online business, our bags are used up. Okay, now we're a B Corp, let's look at a better option. And so we go into research. New products come in. Is the quality good? We always go with a start. Can we do this in recycled polyester now? But we haven't taken old virgin polyester products because we know they last long, the quality, the feedback. So we haven't gone down the route of let's change that because we know it's got a longevity to it, even though it might be easier to sell if you said it was. But now new products, it's like, can we do this with recycled polyester? Can we make a product that we like? Is this something that is better? And that's how we do it. So we're on a journey. I'm no expert at this stuff, but that's my thing. People don't buy sustainability, but you need to be a sustainable business. You need to have it at the heart of what you do. And I think that's probably what you're experiencing coming into a large, already established organization. If you don't have that at the heart, it's a slower process to bring it, and it's a costly process to get that all right. And there is a lot of challenges around waste management and following. You can pay contractors to look after all this stuff, but the traceability isn't always there. So there's a lot of work needs done in the sustainability piece, and also we were talking about things like recycled polyester. So I don't know if you've shopped recently. A lot of the brands, actually, look at the labels. A lot of brands are now saying 51% recycled polyester. So we've created a culture in them, but it seems like we're moving away to now we've got blended fabric, which we've just heard is probably a little bit, but we've still got enough to make it justifiably recycled product. And also plastic recycled polyester is not a circular model. It just gives an extra one life. So actually we're taking plastic out of polyester and plastic out of a plastic recycling, which is circular, creating this consumer product, thinking it sells easier and better and people want it because they feel better about it. But actually when that product is finished, the end of the recycling's over. So if you're in this kind of space, my challenge to us is let's be thought leaders in it and not just followers of it. Because I think if we follow it, we'll end up in just fashion and trends. And actually the world's not going to be in a better place, you know, than what it is today. In fact, the history shows that even with all the stuff we're talking about now, we're in a worse place than we were 10, 20 years ago. So if we're in the consumer and the sustainability space, let's be thought leaders in it. Let's ask questions. Let's be curious about it. And let's say no to things like changing product just because it has something that seems better everyone else is doing, because that'll not make a better planet. So I'd love to invite you into the Madlug story, only when you need a new bag, because we don't encourage people to have multiple bags. If you want to join our movement and buy a backpack, then find somebody to give your other bags to. If you want to wear it so that somebody can see you, showing love without words, then get rid of your other bags, not in the bin, but to other people, and get the life continued there. And thanks for listening, and any questions later.